y'all, I'm Cameron Parham, and I'm doing my serial killer project on Javid Iqbal, the man who murdered 100 boys from the age of 6 to 16 in 6 months. But before we go into the case and stuff like that, I need to let y'all know the background about Javid. So I'm gonna give y'all his origin story. So Javid Iqbal, he was born and raised in Lahore, Pakistan. Lahore is a city in Pakistan. He was born in 1961. Exact day he was born is not known. He was the sixth of 8 children. Now, his father wasn't wealthy, but they were very rich. And during the time Javid's crimes was going on, this was 1999, and poverty levels in Pakistan, it was at an all-time high. So to even be wealthy around this time, it was literally a privilege. Now, they had multiple properties in the respect of everyone in Lahore. The only problem was Javid's father spoiled him so much. When he was only in high school, he had a whole villa to himself, and he had a whole steel recasting business. And he went to college at Government Islamia College as an intermediate student. Yeah, he hadn't faced any extensive trauma in his childhood for real, but with so much freedom, because you know his dad loved him, gave him anything he wanted. So much freedom, he was exposed to a lethal mix of freedom and extreme affluence, and that set him on a very destructive path. Now, for Javid's family, being gay in a conservative family in his society, like homosexuality, it was viewed as a disease and it needed to be cured. But Javid, being him, you know, he felt so free. He felt like nothing was out of reach for him. So in high school, he would bait his schoolmates into sleeping with him. It got so bad, his schoolmates even nicknamed him the boy hunter. Now, and being Islamic and gay, like, is very bad. So his father, like, shielded him for the rest of the family. He made sure nobody else in his family had any control over his life. Now, Javid's dad tried to get him to marry 3 different women, but it failed. So Javid's dad, like, he ultimately gave up. He didn't want any control over Javid's life, but that's all Javid wanted the whole time. So after that, things just got worse and worse. His deep desire and crave to have sex with boys, it grew more and more, and it continued into Javid's adulthood, obviously, and Javid's psychological evaluation. So when it comes to him being a psychopath or a sociopath, it was a little hard, but I came to the conclusion that he's a psychopath because, like, he felt like everything he did, he felt like it was all justified, and he didn't have like any remorse for anything he did. And for the brain function part, I think the amygdala and the his prefrontal cortex don't function properly, because you know when these areas don't function, it could lead to like no empathy and inability to comprehend his consequences of his actions according to societal norms. Then also, since he like maliciously planned this abduction and it was remorseless, then like the murder of all the young boys, it just showed a deep lack of empathy, then emotional detachment issues, and these are all characteristics of psychopathy. We're going to go into Javid's motive for committing the crime. So I told y'all in 1999 the poverty levels in Pakistan were very high, so it was very normal for like children to work, you know, to help out their family and stuff like that rather than attending school. So on September 1998, that night, Javid, he paid for the services of a 15-year-old masseuse. But halfway through their session, he molested the teenager. And when he was done, he had fell asleep. So the boy, he was desperate for revenge, so he got his friend to join him. They came back to the house. They beat Javid like so bad. His skull was fractured. His jaw was broken. And Javid fell asleep in a coma at a hospital in Lahore for 22 days. Now, when Javid woke up for the coma, remember I told y'all him and his dad were very popular. They were rich. I don't know how stuff works in Pakistan, but Javid, he paid off the family, like not to go to the police or anything. That same day, that's when Javid planned, like he was gonna, he made a set number. He said, I'm gonna kill 100 young boys, and afterwards he was supposed to kill himself. So now I'm gonna do the case study part. I'm gonna leave a timeline on the screen while I just go into more detail. The gardens of Manar-e-Pakistan were Javid's hunting grounds. It's basically like a big place where everybody worked. I told y'all how it was normal for like a lot of young boys to work. So yeah, this is basically where they worked at. So he had 3 teenage boys to help him carry out his atrocities. So he had 17-year-old Sajid Ahmed, 15-year-old Muhammad Nidam, and 13-year-old Muhammad Sabir. They were also assaulted and brainwashed by Javid. They helped the serial killer lure unexpected kids to his home, where he took sexual advantage of them. He strangled them to death, cut their bodies up, dissolved them in acid, and then he dumped it into a river in Lahore. And like I told y'all, he set out, like he chose the exact number of 100 boys. So one particular case was Ijaz Muhammad. He was 12 years old at his workplace in Manar-e Pakistan, the gardens. So two boys came up to him, his older brother. His older brother was 19. They were on the street selling their shiny shoes, and the two boys said their boss needed a massage. So Ijaz and his brother followed the two boys down the road until they got to the man's house. Ijaz's brother, like, he left because he was recruited to also go get other boys and bring them to the house. Ijaz stayed to give the man a massage, and the man was Javid Iqbal, and he was never saw again. So there were blood stains on the walls and the floors. It was a chain, like, which he used to strangle the boys and also cut their body parts together before putting them in the acid. He had photographs of all his victims in plastic bags. It was neatly labeled with the names, the ages, their addresses, and handwritten pamphlets. It was 2 vats of acid with partially dissolved human remains, and then it was a note claiming that the bodies in the house had they basically were not disposed of on purpose, so authorities would find them. Now I'm gonna do the trial description and sentencing. So Javid didn't stop his rampage till he reached his 100th victim, and it was in late November 1999. So he sent a self-incriminating package to the Lahore police, and it contained pictures of little boys and a detailed letter where Javid described how excruciatingly he assaulted, murdered, and dismembered 100 boys. Then he sent the same letter to the newspaper. This time in the letter, he basically mentioned the same stuff, but this time he mentioned the exact body parts of their body that he fancied, the date he brought them in. He documented the name of each victim, their address, the color, the clothing, the shapes of their faces. And if this is already not strange enough, he also recorded the amount of cost it cost him to dispose of each body, like everything from the cost of the acid to the cost of transporting the remains. And then he had photographs of every child he claimed he killed before and after he killed them. So that's when, they broke in his home and he searched it, but Javid wasn't there. And when the newspaper was published, that's how Javid knew that they had started looking for him. So that's when he ran. On December 29th of 1999, Javid, he came back again to turn himself in. And the newspaper article was closed. And then when Javid was talking to the police, he confessed to everything. Okay, now when it comes to looking at the attorney's point of views, I feel like due to his confession, there is no room for defense attorney at all. But for a prosecution attorney, obviously, for one, seeking justice for the victims, like, that's one of the reasons. Then Javid established a clear motive and intent behind all the murders. So, I mean, like, it's really nothing you could do. Javid's sentencing, he was sentenced to the death penalty. He was convicted on 100 counts of murder, multiple terms of life imprisonment. Then the judge told him he would be executed the next day in front of the families of all the victims, using the same chain they found in his house, the chain he used to cut up the victims' bodies before placing in acid, the one he used to strangle them, everything. But that same night, he committed suicide. It was a rumor that it wasn't suicide, that he got beat to death or something, but the real truth is not known. They just said it was suicide. I'm gonna talk about the pop culture connection. First, I'm gonna talk about the fascination. What's our fascination with serial killers? So I think, one thing is, basically just the curiosity part of it. Like, the idea of diving into somebody's mind who commits, acts like this and stuff, it probably could be kind of compelling, just to know, just see, the mysterious actions of the serial killers. Then I think it's a psychological intrigue too, because understanding the motivations and the psychological makeup of serial killers, it could kind of be fascinating. I ain't gonna lie, doing this project, I was kind of fascinated, just having to think about some of the stuff they was thinking about while doing these acts. And then basically just exploring the factors that could just drive somebody to commit acts like this, I think it shed a light on just the complexities of the human behavior. Then also, I think it's media portrayal, like books, films, television, and documentaries. It's like a sensation of the lives of the serial killers and stuff like that. And then it just turns them into larger than life figures, and it creates a cult of celebrity around these serial killers. Then I think it's also like a sense of fear and thrill. Like for some people, the fascination, it just stems from a sense of fear and thrill. Then last, I think it can also be a desire for justice and closure. Like in cases where serial killers are apprehended and brought to justice, like the fascination could come from just a desire of justice being served with the families and learning about the investigation, the trial, then the eventual conviction of a serial killer. It could provide a sense of resolution for both the victims' families and just general public, like people watching. I'm gonna give like some examples, like the serial killer's influence on our culture. Like there are movies and TV shows, for example, Silence of the Lambs, Dexter, Mindhunter, Zodiac, and Jeffrey Dahmer. Then there are also like true crime podcasts like Serial, My Favorite Murder, then the Ted Bundy tapes. Then it's authors and literature authors, book and literature authors that write about serial killers all the time. Anne Rule, John Douglas, and Thomas Harris, they write on the subject a lot. So yeah, those are my examples. And also, Javid was supposed to have a own documentary of himself, as you can see, but it ended up getting banned in 2023. And yeah, that just shows like the fascination, a whole documentary about this horrible man. Thank y'all for watching the video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Yeah, I like doing research on Javid. It was crazy.